honestly, sometimes people just want to be heard.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
So I hear you.
I hear you. Mali ka doon.
I hear you. Mali ka, but I hear you. Joke lang. No? Ano sinabi mo? Dali. From the feedback that I never asked for, I don't know, kasi wala. Clearly, hindi ko pa rin alam yung sagot.
I am so passionate about at least moving the needle on that narrative about single women in the Philippines.
Let's do it.
I think...
Let's move that needle. Come on.
So, Nicole, I wanted to ask you,
Ganun
why...
agad?
Yes! Gulatan! Mamaya na yung intro. Ganun yung style dito sa paano ba to? Mid-intro.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, yes. Okay, hindi ako na-prepare.
Nagulat sila. No, I wanted to ask, dito sa Pilipinas, and I'm asking you this because I know you stay a lot in the US as well. You always travel around the world. Dito sa Pilipinas, when you say single, bakit parang people have this connotation about it?
Yes.
Na it's, gets mo? It's not
Nega.
the best.
Nega.
It's not the best status. Parang ganon.
Yes.
But in other countries naman, deadma.
Not even dead, ma. It's parang, it's celebrated pa. Kasi parang, kinaya mo mag-isa. Parang mas.
No, really, where?
Pero, grabe yung where. Bakit doon ba ako pupunta? Alis ka na dito. Doon
Hindi
ka.
naman. But yeah, I get that because my sister, who is living in London and has been for the past 12 years, is also single.
Yeah.
And wala silang care.
Yeah.
Unlike here, when you get to talk to a tito, aninong, oh, wala ka pa bang boyfriend? Or pag may boyfriend,
that's the number
hindi
one.
ka ba pa ikakasal? Pagkasal na, hindi ba kayo magkakaanak? But
Yes.
like specifically single, why do you think dito, hindi siya celebrated?
Yes.
And parang, for other people, it's seen as a, I wouldn't say problem, maybe for some, but parang kulang, may kakulangan when
Yeah.
you're single.
Or minsan kasi ang tanong din sa akin, parang, the way it's asked, there's a connotation as, what's wrong with you?
Bakit nga?
Oo,
Why?
bakit ganon?
Based on what you've observed.
Well, according to my research, no? Thank you for asking.
Ayon sa statistics.
Oo.
Hindi, but like, you're a very observant person kasi. That's why I'm gonna ask you. And
Yeah.
you're very open to all kinds of personalities.
Yeah.
Bakit?
From my gathering, I think...
From my gathering.
Girl, in English ko lang yung... Nainis? Hindi. I think kasi, culturally, and historically, historically, I think meron kasing, there's a big importance and I think focus on the role of the woman in the family.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think, from what I observe, parang growing up, and especially in our parents' generation and in the generation before that, because ngayon lang naman tayo nagbabago talaga eh.
Yeah.
'Di ba? So, historically, when you look back at the time of what was societally accepted or
Right.
what was the norm
Right.
back then, it was that women were not raised to have an education. They
Tama
weren't
naman.
raised, 'di ba?
Historically nga naman, in
Historically, girl.
fairness.
Siyempre,
yes.
doon tayo sa facts.
Oo.
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 As an academe. Yung
Yes.
annoying. Hindi. Pero kasi, historically talaga, women were not given the same opportunities as men. And we were raised to be an agreeable support system to whoever you married. Right?
tama naman.
And also historically, meron yung mga dowry, ganyan. Like parang when you marry my daughter, you get this. So parang
Tama.
it was almost as if we were, I don't want to use the word traded, but parang our role
Raised
was to,
for the role.
yes, we were raised to fit into that role.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until recently that I think there are more conversations about questioning what that role is and if it's even required or needed in society today, because so
Yeah.
much has changed, right?
Yeah.
Now, bringing it back to your question na bakit hanggang ngayon, ganun pa rin yung questions, is because usually, ang nanggagaling naman yung question na yan sa mga tito, tita, ninong, ninang, ganyan, ganun sila pinalaki.
Yeah,
diba?
tama naman.
Yun yung alam nila eh.
Yeah.
So, parang, why would you expect a Chinese person to speak French all of a sudden if that's not what they grew up speaking?
Tama naman.
So, yun.
So, do you still take offense when titos, titas ask you that?
Hindi na. Pero kasi I'm not generally, not just in that topic, but I don't take offense to a lot of things.
Easily.
I'm
So,
a
how
very
do you...
kems tao. I'm very kems.
But how do you answer then?
It depends
When
on
they
how
ask you
close I am to the tito or tita.
Pag close.
Pag super close, like I'll be like, grabe tita kasi ganito. Parang I'll open up or I'll be like, my God tita, like
very jokey.
Yeah, very jokey. And then if I'm not so close to them, one in my mind, why are you asking me? Hindi tayo close. You know what I mean? Like,
pero yung lumalabas sa bibig ay...
Ang lumalabas sa bibig is, oh, well, that's not my priority. Very like public PC answer. Like, that's not my priority right now. I'm really just focusing on work.
Yeah.
And, like, la la. But, if it happens on the road, I'm open.
Yeah.
Ganon.
Yeah.
And then what I do is, as a host, I just steer the conversation to a different topic para hindi na. Pero meron din kasi yung makulit.
Yeah.
Meron yung mga, like, all throughout the dinner, mga 3 times, 4 times, i-bring up, na parang, pag ganon, sasabihin ko na, ay, tita, if you're so concerned, ikaw maghanap ng jowa. Diba? If you're so concerned for me, ikaw ang matchmaker. You can do it, tita. Let's go. Like, I believe in you.
Ganda.
And then, meron naman silang manok minsan. O di, win-win.
Yeah.
Happy si tita. Happy na rin tayo. Kung cute yung I have this apo.
Yes.
Let's go, tita.
Yes.
Ganon.
Ganda.
So,
Ganda
if concerned ka talaga, help a sister out.
Tama.
Diba?
Oo. Tanong mo, suggest mo, gawa mo.
Oo. Kasi, binring up mo yung problem eh. Di gawa tayo solution.
Yeah.
Oo.
So, eto na yon. Welcome to
Okay,
Paano Ba To? Nicole Anderson of
Hello.
the Solo Flight Podcast.
Yes, thank you so
Welcome
much.
to the podcasting world.
Thank you. Alam mo, Bianca, pinangarap ko talagang interviewin mo. Grabe naman! Dream come true to for me.
Grabe naman.
Hindi, totoo. Kasi syempre, growing up, pinapanood kita sa TV. So,
Thank
sabi ko,
you.
one day, may interview din ako ni Bianca. Eto na yun.
Shucks! Thank you also
Balikan
for...
mo nga kasi pinangarap ko to.
Diyos ko. Na-pressure ako bigla. Oo. But thank you for allowing us to use. This is entirely Nicole's setup, camera, lights, home, everything.
Yeah.
Maraming salamat.
Of course. Thank you for coming and visiting and honestly gracing me on my podcast also.
So I also guested on Nicole's podcast. So just look it up, the Solo Flight Podcast. Ang daming topics pala. Nagulat din ako. Hindi na pala isang topic, a hodgepodge of
Diba?
topics. Yes.
Kasi ganun din yung takbo ng utak ko eh.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is why I wanted to talk to you about this topic because I am so passionate about at least moving the needle on that narrative about single women in the Philippines.
Let's do it.
I think
Let's move that needle. Come on.
I'm passionate about it because I see nga how happy my sister is living her life, nobody bothering her, and yet she still gets these questions.
Yes.
So, we gathered from the community a few letters from single women. So, I'd like to read some to you and I guess we'll share our thoughts on
Let's
them.
go. Ready?
Okay. First, this is from 8 years single.
Wait lang, grabe. Grabe yung may pa-notes ka pa dyan.
Yes, letter nila yan. Oo.
Okay.
Yes, this is from Miss 8 years single. I'm sharing my recent story as a single woman for almost 8 years now. Honestly, I'm looking for a long-term relationship. Akala ko yung last na naligaw sa akin is ito na. Tapos, di pa rin pala siya. Not a person na sinusurprise, pero ako yung type of person na into that thing. Never ko na-experience na may nagbibigay ng flowers. Then my birthday happened last May. Unfortunately, being a person na sobrang baba ng emotional intelligence, hindi magets ng guy na sobra akong upset sa kanya. Ang last convo namin was his asking me na mag-dinner na and I replied not yet. And then updated me kung nasan siya, ang reply ko lang, go spend your time with them. Unexpectedly, yun na pala last conversation namin together. Nakakasad lang kasi siya lang din yung first ever guy na nalaman ng friends and family ko habang kami. Since I'm the type of person na never nagkwento unless tapos na yung relationship or yung time namin together. Oh.
Nako.
So,
Mali ka dun.
agad-agad.
Wait, joke
Simple yung sagot. But yeah, that is the short of her story about her last almost relationship.
Okay. And,
Yeah.
Pero wala siyang question.
Wala siyang question. It's just sharing their stories. And a lot of
Okay.
time kasi paano ba to? And ito natutunan ko to from many years of doing the it started as a book,
Okay.
then became a YouTube channel, and then now it's also on the podcast. Dati kasi puro advice
Yes.
ang binibigay. And now it's more of story sharing, perspective story kasi wala naman talagang isang advice na tama. And
wala
a lot
naman
of
tamang isang sagot.
Yes. And a lot of people just feel sometimes na mas maluwag sa loob when they actually get to share their story. Or those listening feel like, oh, shucks, hindi lang pala ako.
Yes. Honestly, sometimes people just want to be heard.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I hear you.
I hear you. Mali ka doon.
I hear you. Mali ka, but I hear you. Joke lang.
Hindi, pero-
Hindi ko lang para hindi mabigat.
Yes. Merong mga points of improvement kasi clearly dito sa story based sa mga napagdaanan nating pareho.
Tama.
In life.
Simulan mo na kasi ikaw yung mas successful in the eyes
Uy,
of the
grabe
public.
naman. Hindi. That's why I chose this letter for you is
Okay.
because I know you've mentioned this in your other podcast guestings and even kanina when we talked on your pod na you're very straightforward.
Yes.
You say things as they are, which is not easy, especially culturally
Yes.
sa atin.
Yeah.
And I think yun yung, kasi may regret siya na parang
Parang.
pa-sweet-sweet lang siya sa answer niya, yung pala last na yon.
Oo.
Kasi hindi niya sinabi talaga. So
Which
yeah.
is yun na nga ba yung sasabihin
So
ko.
how do you get there? How do you get to that place na you'll...
To be able to communicate.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think kasi with here, there are a few things I want to break it down.
What?
In sentence 2, clause 3. No, kasi she said na she was never the type to para she never had flowers.
Yes.
But she wanted flowers.
Yes.
And then nagtampo siya when she didn't get it.
Yes.
And these are clearly uncommunicated expectations.
Yes.
And that is where people run into problems, not just in dating relationships, but in familial relationships and friendships also.
Yeah.
Is when you have an expectation of that friend, partner, lover, husband, whatever, that you don't communicate, and all of a sudden you want them to read your mind, tas ikaw pa yung galit when they don't.
Yeah.
And it's not fair for the partner.
Yeah.
It's not fair for the friend, for
Yeah.
the mom, for the sibling, anyone, to be like, I'm sorry, hindi ko nabasa yung utak mo,
Yeah.
right? So, for me, you have to communicate expectations if they really matter that much to you.
Yeah.
Right? Because in the end, sino ang nasaktan? Ikaw, di ba?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
so kung ginagawa mo yun, in the end, parang sinasaktan mo lang yung sarili mo by not communicating, right? And especially if it's something as small as flowers. 'Di ba? Like, hindi mo naman sinabi gusto ko bahay lupa.
Or hindi mo
yun?
naman sinabing kailangan 24 red roses. Yung
Oo.
simpleng flowers
Simple
lang.
flowers lang. So, parang for me, kung ganun din lang naman kaliit na bagay, i-communicate mo na because then you can avoid issues in the future.
Yeah.
Na, yun. So, I feel like you should have communicated, but I also don't think it's fair for you to say that whoever you're talking to has low emotional intelligence for not reading your mind. You know what I
tama
mean?
naman.
And I think if you have kasi an expectation that you want someone to treat you a certain way, then you need to show up that way also.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, if you want them to have high emotional intelligence, well, then you also have to have high emotional intelligence because it's not fair na isang tao lang yung magdadala nun.
Yeah.
Right? So, and having high emotional intelligence is being able to communicate
Yeah.
what you need in a relationship. So, I feel like parang I want you to help yourself because in the end, ikaw lang ang masasaktan. Right?
Yeah.
So, kung yun lang naman ang gusto mo or you have other needs that you want met, help yourself. Kumbaga, help them help you. Diba?
Yeah.
If you need something communicate it. And there's a way kasi, and like you said, culturally, I understand that in the Philippines, it's difficult to communicate what your needs and expectations are.
Yeah.
But there are ways to go about it where it doesn't come off demanding. Because, diba, especially as women, they're like, don't be demanding. Don't ruffle feathers. Diba? Don't. Ang daming don't. Honestly, ang hirap. Maraming don't. But I think you can communicate in the way na you can be like, I've actually never had flowers before, and like, I hope one day that happens to me. Because if you communicate it that way, it's like, I'm hoping this will happen to me, and you're not putting the pressure on the person na, you better get me flowers.
Yeah.
But if that person can also read the room and be like, oh, I would love to be that person for her. If she's lived, let's say, if she's 40, she didn't say how old she is, but if she's 40 and she's never had flowers, wouldn't a guy also be like, I would love to be the first one in her whole life to be able to provide such a small need? Diba?
Yeah, tama naman.
What do you think?
Tama naman. And that makes so much sense. I was gonna add nga na, if hindi mo pa kaya yung big things, you can start with very, very tiny things.
Small. Ikaw, paano ba when you have a need in your marriage? Well,
marriage agad.
In-interview na rin kita. Hindi maiwasan. How would you do it?
As a host, yes. I think kasi that's one of the signs that you can be in a long-term or lifetime partnership with someone is if hindi ka nahihirapan to share the big things, the small things, or the hard things.
Yeah.
Kasi lalo na in a marriage, you'll have to talk about very hard things.
Yeah. Finances.
Big decisions.
Parents' health.
Yes, kung ano-ano. So, sa amin, it has always been a bit easy. But I guess, I also started in early relationships nga na parang jahe naman to say. But yun nga.
So, ano yung, kunwari, like small
Ay, literally,
things?
pwede kong pakuha to sa'yo. Pwedeng paabot ng ganyan. Ganon kaliit. Talagang
liitan
baby
mo pa.
steps.
Para aabot ka doon.
Yes. Ganon ka baby steps how I started before to build that confidence to ask for things. And I remember one tip that I got was don't make it about the other person's feelings. Hindi siya parang attack to the person na, you didn't get me flowers. It's more of how I felt. I felt sad that I didn't get flowers.
This
parang
is
ganun
giving therapy talk.
Yes,
Kasi ganon. It's not, you did this. It's, I felt.
Yeah.
That's
Parang
true.
Brené Brown ko nga yata narinig yun eh.
Wait, I learned that in
ganun.
therapy. It's not about, you never wash the dishes. It's, when you don't wash the dishes, I feel undervalued.
Yes, parang
ganon.
ganyan. Yes, I believe I also heard that in therapy as
Yes.
well. But yeah, yun. Although I feel like, yan, sinasabi niya, I'm really looking up for a long-term relationship. So I guess I went there because nga, girl, kung long-term relationship yung hanap mo, you have to be willing to carry heavier
Yun
load.
Oo. Flowers nga, hindi mo pa masabi. Girl, what more yung mortgage?
Hirap
na bahay?
hirap. Pag long-term talaga kailangan, ano ba, hindi naman toughen up, but it's more like, open
Practice.
up. Yeah. At
Tsaka practice content.
yeah. Yeah.
And
Grabe.
parang siguro, when you get the small things that you want, encourage that behavior by showing appreciation. Diba?
Tama din naman.
So kapag, kunwari, kasi also, ikaw, kunwari, sinurprise mo yung schoolmate mo sa school na, oh, I got you brownies. Tapos pag abot ng brownies, thanks. Tapos bibili ka ng brownies next time?
Siyempre hindi
Hindi.
na.
Kasi you're like, parang ayaw mo, diwag. Hindi na maulit.
Yeah.
So if there's something, a behavior that you like, oh, thank you, I love this, share tayo. O, diba? Or let's eat it. Or parang ganon. So, encourage mo yung...
Naging dog, yung Pavlovian.
Pavlovian response.
Yes.
Dapat may ganon.
Oo. Ay, nako. Tama nga naman. Okay. This is our next letter from attorney Sapat lang.
Ay, okay.
Sabi niya, sa totoo lang, I feel like I'm normal like my other married friends. I'm 42 years old, female, have more reproductive issues than married women I know, and I am a lawyer by profession. Why do I have to say what I do? Siguro people think that I'm single because of my profession. But I don't think so. In fact, mas tingin ko, hindi lang ako yung tipong gustuhin. Hindi ako maganda, but I don't think mapangit naman. Not that it bothers me, but if single ka, people will try to justify or reason out why you're single. Sila magpo-provide ng listahan. So, mapapaisip ka, bakit nga ba? But to be honest, okay ako. Hindi naman ako naghahanap ng partner, walang urge, walang longing, walang bitterness.
Okay.
Hindi ako masaya, pero di din ako malungkot. If there's one thing I'm thinking of, siguro what will happen when I grow old. Super relate.
Okay naman pala siya eh.
Wala pala siya problema.
Wala pala problema, di okay.
In fairness, wala siyang problema. And I think that this is a great letter because she's an example of a single woman who's in a good place.
Yes.
But I did want to point out, bakit nga ganun? Kung single ka, yung ibang tao yung magpo-provide ng listahan
Yun.
ng theory nila kung bakit ka single.
Na eto pa, hindi mo hiningi.
Sila
Yun yung
nag-offer.
mas malala na parang di kita tinanong.
What's the worst reason or ano yung pinaka nakakainis na sinabi ng tao sa'yo na reason why you are single?
Lahat. Lahat nakakainis. Hindi, joke. I don't think nakakainis because like I said, I'm super
Yeah,
tense.
yes,
Like, I
yes.
really don't care.
What's the common one na lang?
Common for me is intimidating.
That
And I'm sure her also kasi lawyer.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Na, in context, single ka because you're intimidating.
Yes.
Which
A lot of
honestly,
people-
I told you this via message kanina na parang I've gotten that also growing up na parang, kaya wala kang jowa kasi they're intimidated by you. Bakit?
Yeah, bakit? Well, but me, I get it.
Ah?
Because I guess you're more introverted.
Ako pala, akala ko yun.
Hindi, ikaw gets ko kung bakit. Gets ko kung bakit wala lumalapit. Ang hard. Hindi, for me, I get why
Yeah.
people don't like approach me easily.
Yeah.
Because from the feedback that I never asked for, hindi ko hiningi na feedback.
Oo.
Well, one, gising naman ako kasi nakikita ko because I also have vlogs and sometimes when I'm out in public, people send me videos of myself. Like, they'll be like, oh, I saw you in Starbucks, tapos magzo-zoom in sila from afar. Mga
Yeah.
ganon. I get a lot of that. So I can see why people say, because I also have very strong RBF. For those listening, RBF means resting bitch face.
Yes.
So, gets ko. Kasi kung ako rin, I'm like, pag nakikita ko rin yung video, I'm like, mukha nga ako mataray. Gets. So, gets
Meaning
ko.
from a third person point of view, objectively, gets mo why
Gets
they're
ko naman. Which is why I also don't hold it against people. Because ako
Yeah.
din, pag nakikita ko, nga.
Yeah.
Tama naman.
I remember when before I met my husband, hindi kasi ako yung madaming nanliligaw sa akin growing up. Ever. As in from school, working, kung ano man.
Okay.
Never yung parang, di ba, we have a lot of friends na ang daming nanliligaw sabay-sabay.
Yes.
Never ako ganun. And I was told once na parang, masyado ka kasing matalino. Parang ganon, na-intimidate sila sa'yo.
I
Parang
get that
ganyan.
also.
Or,
I get that also. Or even from a date. They're like,
On the date
on
mismo?
the date, he told me, or meron din ako na, kasi naging friends ko yung iba after, so parang joke na lang namin, no, nung nag-date tayo, ganito nga. May mga ganon.
yeah.
Yun, same. Like, the conversation is too intellectual that they feel like they can't keep up.
Grabe, no?
Yeah.
And I remember telling myself at
But
that...
also, is that your fault?
Kaya nga!
Like,
No smart shaming, please.
I know. Bakit na bobo yung topic mo? Ba't mo ako shame? Diba? Dapat fair.
Tama. No
Oo.
shaming period. Pero I remember at the time, kasi I was already late 20s noon. And at that time, feeling ko, oh my gosh, late 20s. Parang, nearing the finish line na at that time.
Oh.
I didn't know any better. Ngayon, kahit 40, malayo pa sa finish line.
Okay.
Before I met my husband, na parang wala nga naliligaw, ganyan. I was single, nobody was even asking my friends about me. Ang inisip ko noon, I remember, why would I want to be with a guy who has no balls to be with me?
Exactly.
And sakto, when I spoke that, it was a few weeks after that I met my husband, who ironically...
Why would I want to be with a guy? Ano? Ano sinabi mo? Dali.
Why would want to be with a guy who has no balls to be with me?
Why would I want to be with a guy who has no balls to be with me? Universe, do your
Yeah.
thing.
Ganda. Let's see.
Got it. Oh, guys.
Ironically, weeks after, literal, nakilala ko, basketball player.
Okay.
Who I didn't even think, I wasn't entertaining kasi ayoko to be with a basketball player, etc., etc. But, diba, parang, oo nga naman, if someone is too intimidated to be with you, ba't mo siya?
Parang, ba't mo pipilitin?
Oo,
diba?
ba't mo pipilitin?
Parang kung gusto mo. Kung ayaw mo, wag din. Which is why also, ayoko rin mamilit or like, magbago ng pagkatao ko para lang may lumapit. Alam mo na, guys, just clarify, baka maawa kayo sa akin. May lumalapit na mo. Oo, baka naman maawa. Hindi.
Very active in the dating scene?
Dati.
Ay, dati. Oo.
Anyway, I think kasi, parang, kung ayaw lumapit, ba't ko iibahin yung pagkatao ko para dumami yung lumapit? Like, why should I change who I am to accommodate others? Or like, to accommodate the potential of having people want to date me? Like, what do I get in that?
Yeah.
Because in the end, kung nagkunwari rin ako na kunwari introvert ako, kunwari like tahimik
Dalagang
lang.
Pilipina.
Dalagang Pilipina. Tapos, kapag nag-get to know me na, magugulat din sila na, ay, hindi ka pala ganon.
Yes.
In the end, talo tayong pareho.
Super. Ako, yun ang isa din sa mga natutunan ko through different relationships that failed is if you do a best foot forward in the way that's not you, ay ikaw din yung talo sa end talaga.
That's why I hate ligaw.
Tama naman.
Kasi parang, pero recently, ito ko lang natutunan yon. After all of what I've been through, parang ayoko na ng ligaw kasi parang nabubudol ako. Kasi yung pinapakita yung best. Tapos kapag nakuha ka na or parang kayo na, I'm like, teka, parang
iba.
Hindi ito yung yung parang in-order ko sa Lazada at yung dumating. Hindi ito yung in-order ko.
Oo, tama.
Yun.
Tama.
So, natakot na ako sa ganun.
Yeah, tama naman. So, what's the alternative now if it's not ligaw?
I don't know, kasi wala clearly, hindi ko pa rin alam yung sagot.
Prolonged getting to know you stage, ganon?
Yeah, I think actually, in my experience, to be fair, there are a lot of great guys out there, and I've met a lot of great guys. But I think kasi, especially as you get older, you get to know yourself better, and you get to know what your non-negotiables are.
Yeah.
It's not about being picky. It's about being honest with yourself and with whoever you're dating.
Yeah.
So if I can already see that there are red flags or it's not a good fit, parang for me, the kindest thing I can do for you is to not waste your time.
Tama.
Because the time you're with me could be spent with your soulmate.
Yeah.
Right?
And likewise for you.
Yeah.
The time freed from him, you could be closer to meeting someone for you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So parang I think, but again, I communicate it in a way na I also don't want to be mean or say na ayoko sa'yo. It's not like that. Parang the way I'm communicating it to you is the way I communicate it to them also na, like when you say this and like when I do this, I'm sure you also don't, like, we don't agree on this, right? And then they'll be like, yeah, you're right. Like, that's not a value we align on. And I'm like, great, well, is that something that you would want your future wife to have? And he goes, yeah. Well, okay, well, that's not me.
Yeah.
And I really wish that for you. I want that for you. So, go forth and prosper.
Yes.
Ganon.
Tama.
Yeah.
That's such a forward way of thinking and so great to put it in a perspective na not because hindi nag-work out with you and someone you're dating doesn't mean wala siyang kwenta or wala kang kwenta. It's just hindi kayo fit.
Tama.
At pwede naman yon. You can be two great people, pero hindi lang fit.
Tama. True. And ang dami ko rin ang pangit ng ang dami.
May mga.
May mga na-date ako na sobrang 100% A+ on paper.
Yeah.
As in like, lahat ng gusto nyo, check.
Yes.
Nandun.
Perfect man to introduce to the family. Ganon.
Yes, siya yung tipong irereto ko sa sister ko or sa future anak ko, ganon. Ay, sabi ko, ay perfect na to. Pero hindi talaga tugma. And if hindi tugma, we're just both, not just me or him, we're both gonna be miserable in the end.
Yeah.
And because especially, this is a rare gem, I want him to be happy. go find your happy ending. And he did. And I'm so happy for him. Because I'm like, di ba?
Yeah.
Ngayon, kung pinilit mo na tayo, sa tayo ngayon. Di ba? So parang, di okay, happy ka.
Totoo.
Yeah.
Gosh. Sana mas marami ang ganito yung maging perspective on dating rather than it being about us na parang bakit? Bakit ako? Or bakit hindi ako? Diba?
I think kasi also, it's about having more conversations like that. And I'm glad we're having this in a quote-unquote public setting where more people can share this with their girlfriends. And even if you're listening here, promote na natin yung podcast mo.
Yeah.
Share nyo na with your friends yung episode. Kasi, I think the more we normalize these conversations, and not just conversations, but this way of thinking, I think we all win in the end.
Yeah.
And it's similar to how we normalized having different body shapes in the last that only happened in the last like 5-7 years.
Yeah.
'Di ba? And nangyari lang naman 'yon dahil pinag-usapan natin.
Yes.
More and more online. At dahil pinag-usapan more online, mas naging topic siya at family dinners, at group hangouts, until ngayon naging norm.
Yeah.
'Di ba?
Yeah.
So, I feel like kailangan lang nating pag-usapan pa para mas maging normal yung situation so that we can change the perspective.
Yes.
Kaya nga i-move na yung needle.
Okay.